Man convicted of injuring several people in a boat crash on the Fox River in 2022 is taken directly to jail after sentencing this afternoon in Winnebago County.
You could watch that hearing live on WBAY.com. A jury previously finding Jason Lindeman guilty of 14 counts, including 2 felonies. The judge sentencing him to 5 months in jail, along with 3 years of probation. Brittany Schmidt sat in on today's packed hearing. She joins us with the judge's reasoning. Brittany.
Kim and Bill, the judge wanted to send a very clear message to the community and the larger boating community in the area as well, that if you are involved in a crash and you do not stop after it to see if someone needs help, you will go to jail. And that is the fate of Lindeman today. He is convicted of crashing his powerboat into a paddle wheel cruise boat on July 9th in 2022. Video shows he did not stop or render aid to those who were injured. The judge calling his actions that night, quote, cowardly and most offensive to the boating community. Lindeman, a prominent businessman and characterized as a leader in the community, apologized, saying he takes responsibility for his behavior and asked the judge for leniency. The state asking the judge to treat him just like anyone else and hold him accountable.
Mr. Lindeman affected 50 other people's lives that day. And had he just stopped and rendered aid, they may not be here. It would have potentially been a week-long story about another accident that occurred on the water, because it is a reality of what happens.
Speaking of the other 50 people involved in the crash, the judge sentenced Lindeman to 50 hours of community service for every year on probation. That's 1 hour for each person's life that he put at risk. As far as restitution requests, which we heard today is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars range, will be decided at a hearing in January. Reporting live in Oshkosh, Brittany Schmidt, Action 2 News.